Wisco Weekly podcast. This is episode number 12. Thanks for tuning in. On this episode, we're going to explore partnering with local businesses and specifically a high school athletic department, as my guest today works as an athletic director. So we'll get to hear some insights on how athletic departments operate, and hopefully you'll get some ideas on how better you can partner with local businesses rather than just giving them a quote-unquote go-away gift. So stay tuned. Here it is what it is, and this is the Wisco Weekly podcast. Brown chicken, brown cow. Welcome back, listeners, to another episode of the Wisco Weekly podcast. I'm your host, Dennis Wisco. Before we get to today's episode, I do have a couple announcements I want to make. First off, if you recall from a previous episode, we had a caller by the name of Cruz from San Clemente who was asking about some car advice, how to sell his car in the shortest amount of money, or in the shortest amount of time for the most amount of money. And he did call me up the other day to let me know that following some of the advice I give him, he ended up selling his car pretty quickly. So he was pretty thrilled about that, and I wanted to share that with you guys as well. Second thing is, so we are winding down season 2, and there's after this episode, we have one more dealer episode for next Thursday. In the off season, please be sure to either like our Facebook page or subscribe to our newsletter. There is a project that I'm hoping to announce next week, in which it'll be, I'll be taking in some requests and essentially running a contest. But again, more details will come hopefully next week. I'll have that for you. And of course, if you do like our Facebook and subscribe to our newsletter, you'll get more of this information faster and in greater detail. Okay, let's get to this episode for today. So I've been wanting to bring on a guest such as who I'm going to have today because I have a background, or I used to work in sports marketing and in educational fundraising, and also having worked at a dealership. This is where I wanted to hopefully combine those two elements, bring some additional insight to the table so that dealers can better learn how to partner with local organizations. Because let me be honest with you, I have yet to see a really good partnership between a dealership and, for instance, what we're going to talk about today, a high school, and specifically a high school athletic department. So especially since I've come from the college athletic field, but certainly there's a lot of sports marketing, promotions, and ideas that hopefully we'll get to today, and I'll get to introduce to you guys. And furthermore, you could carry that out, within your own local community and get a better, make better use of your sponsorship dollars, and also contribute to the community that is also benefiting from from all the sales tax that you guys do generate. So let's get to today's guest here. There's a term in fundraising called a go-away gift. This is the result of a donor contributing money to an organization where the donation is based out of need rather than want. The organization needs the donation, and in an effort to be thankful yet not rude, the donor makes a small donation so that it appeases the organization and makes them, quote unquote, go away. Part of living in your community is doing business with your community. As it happens, many nonprofit organizations contact dealerships for their monetary support. Because dealerships are solicited often, they try to support these organizations as best they can, and usually do that in the form of a go-away gift. It goes something like this. Nonprofit organization says, "Hey, dealer, we would like for you to sponsor our golf tournament for $10,000. Dealer says, "Nah, that's okay. Here's $500 for a game program ad." So on this episode, we get to hear insider information on Mission Viejo High School in Mission Viejo, California, and to understand how they operate and how dealers can better partner with local organizations. Our guest today is high school athletic director, Coach Troy Roelen. He has served as the athletic director for Mission Viejo High School for the last 10 years, however, has been involved with the high school for 21 years. And in addition to serving as the athletic director, he also teaches English. His students describe him as hilarious, loyal, and inspiring. Here to shed some light on local community partnerships, listeners, please welcome to the podcast, Coach Troy Roelen. Coach.
How you doing?
Good, sir. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Well, thank you, sir, for coming on. I'm looking forward to hearing about your high school, and definitely, if one of the things that comes out of this, Coach, is you guys are able to partner with some dealerships. I hope that does come out of this here. So perhaps with some of the questions I'll be asking to really map out what are the benefits a dealer can get out of it. Hopefully, you can use it to your advantage. So, having said that, though, let's start with this. Paint me a picture of what it's like to be an athletic director.
Generally speaking, I look over about 1,200 athletes a year, making sure that they all have physicals, make sure they all have concussions, make sure they're all living in our attendance area, that their GPAs are at least over a 2.0, they don't have any U's in citizenship or work habits, and quite frankly, to give them a very good high school experience athletically, which I think is very important, to be well-rounded both academically and athletically. In South Orange County, there's a lot of people who depend on athletics to open doors to the next level, perhaps playing collegiately or even going on.
How many sports do you guys sponsor at Mission Viejo?
About 50.
50 sports?
We have boys and girls, so
Holy cow!
So when you're looking at boys and girls, so boys and girls track and boys and girls swimming, boys and girls basketball, baseball, softball, wrestling, lacrosse, football. We have the whole gamut, and up until a few years ago, we even had roller hockey. And now we're partnering with even UCI for esports, which is becoming increasingly more popular.
That's kind of cool, actually.
Yeah, it is very cool.
Because that's going to introduce kind of a whole new segment of would you still call them student athletes?
I don't know if I have to test them for concussions or not. If they throw their controllers at one another, I don't know.
Yeah, it could be a violent sport. Yeah. How many? So there's 1,200 student athletes that you oversee on an annual basis. What is the population of Mission Viejo High School? Student population.
Yeah, currently we're around 2,200.
2,200. And then how many in a senior class?
I would say between 500 to 600.
Oh, that's a big senior class, 500 to 600. And how long have you guys been? How old is Mission Viejo High School?
Last year was our 50th anniversary.
50th anniversary. So if I do some math here, 50th anniversary, and let's just say, let's take at least for the last maybe 20 years that you guys have had about 500-ish graduating students?
More so than when I started in 97, our population was 2,900.
Oh, so it's even bigger back then.
Yeah, and as the population's gotten older, now people are empty nesting, but they're not leaving their houses. They stay in the area.
How is the alumni base for Mission Viejo?
Alumni's great.
Yeah.
We just had our 50th anniversary. A lot of people came back, and I think currently we have 8 people in the NFL.
Okay.
And then Chandler Hutchinson, who played for me, is going to be a high draft pick, I think, in the NBA this year.
And where's he at right now?
He's at Boise State.
Okay.
And then, we have some baseball players that have been drafted. Boog Powell he's up with the Oakland A's, I think, right now. And then we had a pitcher drafted, and he's with the Houston Astros organization. So,
one of the questions that I was thinking about, because, having worked in college athletics, companies cannot sponsor athletes, right? I mean, that's a gift that can basically ruin all chances of not only a professional career, but even your amateur career within the NCAA. What are the policies surrounding companies sponsoring a high school athlete? Is there any policy around that?
We do ask people to fundraise. I mean, there's an idea out there. We have to be very careful. The ACLU put out some laws and some paperwork and says you can't use the word fee anymore. And it's a relatively new concept. Now we have to use donation and contribution. So when companies are looking to sponsor an athlete,
right,
they can make donations and contributions, which are really a necessity to keep athletics alive at the high school level because they are underfunded.
So this is kind of, So I don't know how long. I'm probably 10 years removed now from not working in college sports, and then even high school athletics. I've had a very short stint working at Servite. But so one of the popular things that happens till this day with a lot of individuals, and certainly with the popular kids, is that they tend to get these big followings through social media. Probably a good channel would be Instagram. So one of the things usually in the professional side of business is you're always kind of taught to try to partner with quote unquote influencers. The influencers being those who have big followings. So has anything ever been explored at that? So again, let's take the most egregious example of your high school quarterback, right? Obviously, sometimes the most popular of kids in a high school. Is it ever possible to donate to the high school quarterback, and then by virtue of a following that he has, companies can then look to also tie in with that exposure?
Yeah, they're using social media. Like I was reading the other day, like the average teenager on our campus with Snapchat, FaceTime's about 36 minutes a day. That's a lot of time. When you look at commercials being only 1 minute long, 36 minutes is a lot of time. And I don't necessarily think they sponsor one athlete as much as they do generating monies for a whole program, but they may put it in that athlete's name. Sure. We do have to constantly, because of NCAA regulations and stuff like that, tell them you can't accept gifts, that are more than this, and CIF this, and there's no cash involved. And
well, the student athlete can't receive it directly, right?
Right. It would go into an ASB account.
It go into an ASB account,
right.
But yet that would still be treated as some kind of sponsorship package, at least from the business side of things.
Yeah, for instance, and you took like our football program, for instance, which is a monster and it's nationally known and everything. On average, they look for $800.
Okay,
$800 per player.
Okay.
And contribution donation. Okay. If that's, they can get that through advertising. Then there's various
which is always kind of the most popular fundraising methods.
It is, because the residual income that companies get from it, and Mission Viejo is a pretty close knit community. They want people to constantly go back to, let's say, their restaurants or their dealerships, as we're talking about today with car dealerships, or we had a discount card that we offered, and people begged to get on it, and there's a local pizza restaurant that sold 1,200 more pizzas.
What's that discount card?
It's just a Mission Viejo discount card. It has our athletic schedules on it, and then it has various discounts on it that our athletes sell.
Okay.
And like I said,
and then are they having to take that discount card to a business to get that discount, or is there a coupon code or something like that?
There's two things that are going on. There's one, they can take the coupon card to the business, and then if you remember, we were growing up, we had the entertainment book, which is that big book everybody had lug around.
Yep.
Okay, well now that's even gone on your phone.
Okay.
So now it just generates those QRC numbers, so you don't even need the book anymore. You can call it up on your phone and just scan it now and receive discounts all over the United States.
Okay.
So,
And so you're telling a pizza joint, what was
1,200 extra pizzas this year.
Okay.
That's what it brought in for them, and it's no cost to them. So they just agree, hey, we're going to do $5 off a pizza or something to that effect on there. And
does that money go back to your program?
Only the initial sales of the card come back to our program.
Okay.
But then what they want to do is, hey, can we put 4 coupons on it next year?
Okay, right.
And it's important for me to stay involved in the community. The high school, Mission Viejo, shares the name with the city, and that's pretty special. And we're having our 50th anniversary, and the city's involved. It's important that I take care of the local community businesses.
Share with us some additional examples of some of the partnerships that have been formed with businesses. Maybe not necessarily dealerships, but what are some examples of other partnerships? And what they get by partnering with Mission Viejo High School.
Yeah, a lot of times restaurants, offer 30% back to the school on a certain night if everybody says they're from the high school.
Okay.
So if families are going to eat out, let's say on a Tuesday night, and we can say, hey, you can go to this restaurant, and they'll give certain monies back to the athletic department.
Okay.
That allows us to pay coaches, sustain, programs that otherwise are underfunded. To do it. So they have those nights. Other things that they do, obviously they have had golf tournaments. in the past that they want to be part of. We have those gourmet trucks.
Okay.
If you've seen those gourmet trucks, they'll come to campus.
Okay.
And kids have to eat. So they'll donate money back from every meal sold.
Got it. Okay.
To certain programs, on campus as well.
And so I'm curious, all these partnerships you speak of, I would imagine these are, I don't know if you want to disclose this, if you're allowed to, like what would be kind of the dollar amount that you are perhaps generating from these programs, either a higher, a lower, an average number?
Well, all the sport, we have various sports and they all have various budgets to meet. Mm-hmm. And so let's just take, you're taking something like girls golf. There might be a total of 16 athletes in girls golf. So their budget and what's needed to run their program is drastically different than football, let's say. Mm-hmm. So if football was 800 that they had to get to, maybe girls golf is 150. Mm-hmm. And if they could do that through fundraising or ads or something to that effect. But oftentimes, when they want extra things, you still have to come up with green fees, and mm-hmm. Things that you don't necessarily, consider. Because a lot of the times in other sports, football and basketball, if they're your two mainstays on campus, which generally in high school they are,
yep.
all the revenue generated at the gate goes to pay for the officials for every other sport.
Interesting.
Because they don't charge for baseball games, softball games, soccer mm-hmm. games, anything that's outside that you can walk down to, you still have to pay the officials. But there's not an entrance fee.
So as a public high school, then as a way to offset these fees, aside from ticket revenue, aside from sponsorships, are you getting any kind of assistance from the state at all?
It's weird. Athletics, I think, play a huge part in the high school and the environment at the high school and the culture of a high school. And I think a lot of times your athletes are people who are looked up to, kind of follow the rules, or they kind of hold the line and hold people accountable. And a lot of times the first things cut are athletic stipends. So for instance, in our district, they've cut 88 athletic stipends. So if you're asking if we get help, now we have to make up for those 88 athletic stipends that have been cut to make sure we have enough supervision.
Hold on, 88 sounds like a lot.
80?
So you have 50 sports, 88 athletic stipends, that's for coaches.
Correct. So let's say, for instance, you had a freshman basketball team, sophomore, JV, and varsity.
Okay.
So we used to have 4 stipends there. Now there are 2 stipends there.
Oh.
If football, which is generally a big sport on campus, there's now 4 paid stipends. And as an example, our varsity football staff, there were 22 coaches. So that's just for varsity, and then you got to pay your JV and freshman coaches as well. So a lot of the monies that are garnered through advertising and gate and stuff goes to offset just for that.
That's crazy.
And then you're looking at a stipend, and it's $2,500 for the season. So if you break that down hourly, it's not a whole lot. A lot of the coaches are doing it for the love of the sport.
Let me ask you this. Let's play in a hypothetical world real quick. Let's say let's use football, and then let's use is girls basketball on the girls' side? Would that be the most popular sport at Mission Viejo High School? What would be the most popular?
Our softball team was number 1 in the United States for a few years.
Okay. So let's use softball and football. If there was the opportunity to get one sponsor, all right, let's just say again, you guys said, okay, let's do away with all the players raising or not raising $800 per player. It's too much of a burden on them. Let's try to streamline this. Let's get one sponsor. Let's go all in one sponsor. How much would, of course, again, I know that you'd probably want to get as much as possible, but within reason here. How much would you like to get out of one sponsor for football? How much would it take to sponsor softball?
The softball is to be considerably less because not everybody has their own helmet. Everybody comes with their own bat.
Okay.
Everybody has their own mitt. A lot of times football, they don't have their own helmet. They don't have their own shoulder pads. They don't have their pads given because it's a non-cut sport.
Mm-hmm. Non-cut, explain that for me.
That is, there's not necessarily a tryout for it. Anybody who would want to play is welcome to play, but then you have to provide all the necessary equipment for them to be able to play.
Wowzers. Okay.
So, if you had, let's say, for instance, this year, let's say we had 60 freshmen, right? Next year we had 75. Now we're going to have to go out and buy 15 more helmets, 15 more shoulder pads, and that money needs to come from somewhere, and it's not necessarily going to come from the district. it needs to, you need
So
to
you guys
provide
do get money from the district, a little bit of
a
money.
little bit of money from the district, and generally that's to repair pads, to
Okay.
recondition helmets,
Okay.
Things like that. But, depending on the numbers, that means you have to have uniforms as well. You have to provide everything that someone would need to be able to perform in the sport.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, baseball is a lot less because a lot of people grow up, they have a glove. They have their own bat.
Okay.
Our softball team's a high level, so they're all playing travel ball.
Okay.
So all you're really furnishing for them maybe is a jersey and pants.
Okay.
That they're going to go ahead and turn in at the end of the season.
Right. And you're going to recycle it for like 3 years.
You got it. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and you just got to make it last as long as possible, and that's kind of the way it is,
Well, so how much would an ideal sponsorship be for football then?
When you look at, but football's total budget, if we're going to deal with imaginary numbers, let's say football's entire budget, if you had 160 kids and they're asking for $800,
What's the math on that? 160 times 800, 32,000? Is that right?
I don't know. I can tell you in a second. I remember I'm teaching English. I'm not doing the math part of it.
Oh yeah, let's do that here. What's that math here, real quick? I want to say that's 32,000. 160 times 800, right?
Yeah.
Wait a second.
It's 128,000.
120.
So you're a little off. Yeah.
Yeah, my math is really off.
You're a little off.
128,000.
Yeah. And that sounds astronomical, when you're looking at a high school sport at a public school. But then you talk about they're only paying for maybe 4 coaches' stipends. So then the district dictates to you what you have to pay a coach. So I can't say, hey, I'm going to pay you $1,500 to come coach here. They may say the minimum is $3,200.
So you have to. You're
on the hook for $3,200 times however many coaches that you plan to have. Well, in football in this day and age, with everybody being sensitive to concussions and injuries, you want to make sure you have proper supervision.
So I'm curious, actually, if you back 10 years ago, 20 years ago, then 30, 40 years ago, certainly there weren't any kind of official policies high schools had to comply with when it comes to concussions. But I know this has changed over the last few years now, probably even longer than that. So there is some kind of compliance for concussions. That's
concussion protocol, yeah.
And so that is something that, there is a cost to that.
There's a cost to that, and the parents can do what's called baseline concussion testing, where they get a baseline test, and then if during the course of the sport they sustain a concussion, they take the same test and they compare the baseline, pre-concussion to post-concussion, and they can usually tell what part of the brain was damaged or bruised or if there was bleeding. We were talking about partners with this. So Mark Medical, they do our physicals, and they also not only do the concussion part of it, they'll do heart for sudden cardiac arrest. And I was just speaking to Bree at Mark Medical, who we work with, and she said they went in there because they wanted to see if their football player was clear, everything was good, and he had an enlarged valve. And parents wouldn't have found it out. They could have sent him out there, and it could have been fatal. And litigiously, you don't want it to fall on the school.
Oh yeah, definitely not.
But by the same token, we don't have the money to pay for concussion testing for everybody.
Have you guys ever done a 3-way partnership kind of thing? Because so you have a hospital that you guys are partnered with. Have you ever tried to take that hospital, couple it with a dealership, couple it with another business, and then now it's kind of this 3-way partnership with the school?
The only time we've really done that is when we have our athletic trainer, which when you look at that money, we also ask for $400 from every sport to help offset the cost of the trainer. We got to pay for our own trainer.
Okay.
And you also have to have a team doctor by rule there. So a lot of times,
man, there's a part of me. It's like I don't even know how you guys are doing this.
Sometimes it would just be nice to hear thank you every now and then.
I know, right?
But what you would have is, let's say, like a sports medicine doctor. They would work alongside of the trainer. So the trainer then would assign people to a physical therapy clinic, which would then assign people to that doctor. So they go have surgery, and then the doctor would send them back to the PT clinic. So when you're talking about a triple kind of partnership, it's primarily taking place between the trainer, a PT clinic, and maybe a surgeon. A specific orthoscopic surgeon. But when you broach the subject to me about dealerships, I'm thinking, my God, I mean, this is an untapped resource in terms of the amount of kids out there who are driving.
Well, certainly. I mean, I think you can almost come up with a really good kind of, so one of the things that was coming up in my head when you brought up the hospital was like some kind of three-way sponsorship that, especially when it deals in concussions, right? You can almost relay that to safety in a car, right? So all of a sudden now this becomes a little more of a brand awareness for a dealership, for a manufacturer as well, and then all of a sudden, so I know one of the difficulties or challenges on why a dealership and businesses in general will refrain from contributing large dollars to a sponsorship. They may do it as a tax deductible donation. Let's keep that separate. If we talk about a sponsorship, is the reach for a dealership to contribute sponsorship dollars may not be as effective. However, if all of a sudden there is this other component now that comes in of the hospital, well, all of a sudden now, in addition to targeting the community that surrounds Mission Viejo High School, you're also now targeting anyone and everyone who may, have some kind of health issues with regards to spine, concussions, things of that nature. And so again, that becomes more promotion for a dealership now to get their name out there.
Yeah, I think and sometimes we have an auto shop on campus, which is awesome, and kids get to work on cars and stuff like that, and it's great. And for a long time, we had a relationship with BMW, and I think recently it's with Kia. But when you're talking about head injuries, a lot of that stuff is data driven in sports. When you're talking about helmets, well, I think you see the same thing. My brother was in a car accident with airbags, and if it's truly data driven and X car, there's less concussions, when in an accident, and it's a safer, kind of car. I think that's where you can get that concussion testing with the car, if you're talking about a three-way partnership, and then students, who are going to go ahead and purchase that car because the parents want to put them in the safest car possible.
Yeah, certainly. And it's, I think, again, it's having, to a certain extent, I still very much associate myself with a dealer. And so in the eyes of a dealer, we tend to think of things in these 30-day rolling periods. So it's like, again, to engage in a sponsorship is very long term. So that kid, he may get that car when he graduates, presuming he's a senior and he's playing football. So it's 6 months down the road till he gets that car. Man, a dealer, very tough for them to look down, even that short of the road to wait for business. And so, I do believe that one particular area, how the perception should change, and now I'm speaking to you dealers out there more so, is as opposed to looking at this so much in the context of you have to sponsor an organization and you're going to gauge that sponsorship by how many cars you sell or how much service you get out of it. You have to even go a little bit more in depth into your marketing and your digital marketing at that. I'll go into that actually in a little bit more detail in a second here. But Coach, I'm curious. You're mentioning all this data-driven analytics from these concussions, right? And so, is there access to additional data that a dealer could get from your high school or from any high school? So, for instance. A website or Facebook or social media information, your reach, your audience segments, things of that nature.
Oh yeah, I know constantly. Not only are our kids on social media, but our administration does a really good job of using Twitter and social media to constantly contact the kids. I think, now more than ever, when you're looking let's say for instance the tragedy in Florida, this is a place where social media perhaps could have prevented something. And it's where people could be proactive instead of reactive in the future, and using social media that way. So we are finding, and I mentioned to you briefly, I'm streaming all my athletic games now on there, and they can watch it on their phone.
So tell me a little bit more. How are you streaming it?
I installed cameras in the stadium and the gym, and there's a company that's called Pixelot, and what they do is they're unmanned cameras, if you can imagine that, and there's about 4 of them, let's say the size of GoPros, and one is panoramic, another one follows movement only, and they're unmanned, and everything is streamed. So you can watch it from anywhere, anytime. After the game, it stays stored. You could watch it the next day. So
is there, I mean, I take it there's the opportunity to put some kind of logo on that live stream then too?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And it's another way to get more FaceTime. You're looking for now, if you're watching an entire high school game, you're getting an hour and a half of FaceTime, with it. And we are just talking about, it's like, Snapchat is 36 minutes a day. And
well, who's also, who's big onto these live streams also, which, God, I almost hate to reference them on this podcast, is Big Baller Brand. Yeah, and there's, the I forget the two sons' name, playing in what, Latvia or something like that.
Yeah.
And I mean, but I'll tell you what, they are reinventing how sporting events, especially from afar, and maybe not even from afar, when you're looking at very niche type of markets, and you could definitely say that high school athletics is very niche. And them live streaming, because now people are going and logging on to Facebook to now watch this game, whereas once before that wasn't the case. So so you have it set up for which sports?
Currently, it's anything that takes place in the stadium. So it could be
men's, women's
football,
soccer,
football. It'll be lacrosse. It'll be track and field. Anything that takes place in the stadium.
Okay.
And then also anything that takes place in the gym. So you're going to have all basketball and volleyball going on. And then I have one more camera that I'm going to put out on the pool deck. And then the idea is to buy 2 more. One that would go on the baseball field, one that would go on the softball field. We'd have our own sports channel.
That's actually pretty rad. Have you guys tracked, or do you get data back from this company of how many impressions this is generating?
Yeah, what they'll do is they'll tell me how many people have subscribed to it, because it's like a pay-per-view.
Okay.
Pay-per-view, and then they cut us a monthly check. So I had, again, when we're talking about fundraising, come up with a creative way to put fictional butts in seats, if you will, but they can be at home. If they want to go to the football game, but it's raining, now on their smart TV, they can watch the entire football game. And they can subscribe for a month. They can subscribe for the whole year.
They can watch on their mobile device also, wherever
their
they're
phone. Someone has a traveling parent who's in sales. It's the 3:00 start. They can watch the 3:00 start. It's difficult.
What about that's actually pretty cool, because certainly for a lot of people out there who are cutting their cord, the only way of watching things now, and again certainly with niches like high school athletics, if you're not televised, then it doesn't exist. You have to then go there. But speaking of television, you have football that is the only sport that gets televised, or what other sports do you get televised?
No, and again, anything that takes place in the stadium. So our whole
no. I'm saying from a Cox from
Cox stopped televising high school sports. They made that decision. They pulled the plug on it about 4 years ago. We were one of the last games to be televised. And then Cox stopped doing high school sports. So currently, there's no medium for high school sports, with the exception of Fox Sports West. Every now and then we'll do football on Friday nights, or they'll do the championship games in CIF. With our ability to stream, it's been really nice. I'll give you an example. A parent called and said, "Hey, my son's being recruited for soccer in Oregon. How can they log on?" And I walked them through. So the soccer coach in Oregon was able to watch the player play live streaming, and it was used as a recruiting tool. So now a lot more coaches have accessibility to our athletes, to get them scholarships. We talked about originally, that sometimes they come to school solely for sports. It's going to open a door maybe to a collegiate level, but the very first thing that's usually cut is sports, and that's why we're short 88 stipends. So I want to make sure, in this day and age, there's a lot of money out there. You worked at UCI, you understand that there's scholarships available and stuff like that, but there also needs to be like ancillary or supplementary income that comes in to help athletes achieve their dream of playing at the next level.
Well, so let me open this up here, Coach. How can I help you?
For me, you opened a Pandora's box a little bit. Like I had been talking about like pizzas, for instance, and they sold 1,200 more pizzas. And And then we started talking about car dealerships, and I said, car dealerships, some people fall in love with cars for life, or someone's a Ford person, someone's a Chevy person, and sometimes they front money, the go away money. Here's $300 for a banner, thanks, just stop bothering me. Well, what happens if it was residual? I know a lot of car dealerships want extra foot traffic, so you're buying the car, but then they also want to do the maintenance on the car, and and maybe they're one for life. So, maybe if they reached out to high schools and being put on the website, and then they came up with some kind of contractual thing for every car sold to a student at the high school.
So here's one of the things I would tell you, if it's you, and this is actually something you had told me the other day too, was that obviously your day in the life is overseeing all these student athletes and making sure that they can play on the field, making sure their health is taken care of, and making sure they can get to that next level. So when it comes to fundraising, while you probably would love to make it your first and second and third priority, unfortunately, you have these priorities already taken care of. So you actually this is more left up to coaches and parent volunteers,
individual sports and parent volunteers.
Yeah, which they're not professional fundraisers and professional marketers and sponsorship people. So they're kind of lost and so they're kind of looking for direction from you guys, at the top. So one of the things I would say that when it comes down to, let's say, dealerships, I think if there was a way to provide this all-encompassing type of sponsorship package approach, right, where kind of going back to that whole concussion thing, like I do think that there is value to a dealer that they can get behind that kind of package, not just purely from the benefit standpoint of, okay, I'm going to get X exposure but on your football games, but now it's, okay, I get to be looked at in the community as someone looking out for the safety of the residents of this city that I also do business in, sell my cars in, blah, blah, blah. So I think that would be the first thing. And, if there's ways that you can look to essentially present these sponsorship packages that almost tie into more of value-based sponsorships, if that makes sense. So it's almost like not make it so it's so tied to benefits as it is tied to brand awareness.
Yeah, and we will do certain things like that. Let's say, for instance, Ford, they may bring 2 or 3 cars up to our football game, for instance, and open them up, and I just let them do it because they're in my neighborhood, and they're really good to us, and they're a big sponsor of CIF, which allows our kids to perform at a high level. So kids then will be able to go into the car, see the cars, see the difference between a new electric car, versus, not electric car. And that may, enhance business. Now, we don't garner any income from that. And that may be because I'm not a businessman, I'm teaching English and,
Well, so here, let me, I think a way you could probably generate money off of something like that. So again, to have a vehicle displayed, again, from a dealership's perspective, they're almost like, okay, yeah, great. Of course, yes, our car's out there. That's great. But to make this now more of an official partnership between the high school and the dealership, if there's a way to somehow collect information, and so on one hand, I would say that, of course, if there's somebody that's manning a booth, maybe there's a car raffle, right? Those are always pretty popular to do. Do a car raffle, somebody fills out information. There's a particular promotion that we ran at UCI where you would take a picture, and then this is all during the game. You take a picture, then you'd have to post it to this one site, and it all had to happen during a game. Have you guys ever explored doing something instantaneous like that?
They do stuff like that through social media.
Okay,
but I don't necessarily. We've done it in conjunction with a dealership. Okay. Per se.
So this would be great for a dealer, because I do think that one of the areas where a dealer could, this is where they'll start to almost be proactive on their end of the partnership, is they'll do their job of retargeting. So meaning that if they're able to somehow collect data. So one of the ideas I was thinking of was like at a football game, for instance, at halftime, there's things that are going on, but maybe there's a particular promotion people have to log on to, using their phone, log on to this particular website. It's, missionviejofootball.com/local4dealer. They log on to the site, they fill out their information, it gets submitted, there's one entry into the car raffle. That, when all of a sudden a customer logs in and submits their information, and as long as a dealer has access to that information, they can track that person and then retarget them with ads that pertain to their dealership. So just something to think about, because that would definitely be an area where dealers and their digital, and they work with very sophisticated ad agencies or an in-house ad agency. Retargeting is something that is definitely all within their control. And so if all of a sudden now you are just an extension of that, man, they would, I'm sure now all of a sudden it's like, this is definitely a way that they can get deeper into their community rather than just having a car out there.
No, and it makes a lot of sense. And I'm looking at our home football games, and sometimes there's anywhere between 4,000 and 6,000 people.
Oh yeah,
see, and you're looking 4,000 to 6,000 people weekly.
And how many home games in
5, and then the playoffs.
So 5 in the playoffs. So okay, my math again was pretty shady. So that's 30,000 in attendance at a home game. So I mean that's So if you can get you'd like to get at least maybe 15-20% of those people logging on. If you get less or more, but still, if they're being retargeted, that's you're multiplying the amount of impressions then that dealer can have, as opposed to now 30,000. That all of a sudden in a given year can grow 3-fold, 4-fold, and boom, that's more exposure for the dealership.
Right, and again, that's just one sport,
and that's money in your that's money in your pocket. There.
It's just one, it's just one sport, and I think I'd like to get eventually to that day where, that number of contribution donation is zero. That all our sports are taken care of.
That is the players' fundraising. It's zero, not the 800.
You can just go out and play and be a kid,
totally.
and be part of it and enjoy the total high school experience, and be part of the culture and stuff like that, because at one time it was that way, and it's just slowly gone away, with club sports and budget cuts, and fundraising's become a necessity, and anything that can make it easier and alleviate a financial burden on a parent, I'm all for it. Like I said, I really look to create partnerships and symbiotic relationships within our community that are mutually beneficial. I think that's a great idea. To using social media and maybe having your picture taken with your information posted up, and now you're in a raffle. For a car.
I would definitely. It would seem to be the case to me that if you're comparing high school athletics and a dealership, a lot of times they would say a dealership is so far back when it comes to marketing and their technology. I could probably make an argument too, and this is not to at all, be offensive, but high school athletic departments are universally pretty behind the curve as well in terms of technology. So much so that dealerships are a little bit ahead of the game. So then, therefore, I think this actually could be a better area. Now, granted, again, you just don't have the staff, and a lot of high schools don't have the staff to take on something like this, but. If you were to start to think of things with regards to how dealerships can use their own digital marketing and let them almost, I think the biggest thing is just the whole retargeting thing. Let them somehow get a little tease information into the community that resides within high school athletics, and then after that, let them do their job. And again, they already have budgets already for advertising, so they're spending $1,000, $5,000, $10,000 a month. I mean, and that's some of that, just like you would get money from the district, they're getting money from the OEMs, so they're getting that money. They have to spend it, right. And so now, if all of a sudden they're able to do it in a different manner, which again, one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on here is that dealerships, they're always looking for new ideas and new opportunities, but they don't know. It's kind of always hard to make that fusion to where a dealership then also says, hey, Mission Viejo High School, we want to partner with you guys. We want to give you guys the idea and the money. They're not gonna go out and do that.
Right.
So
no, I hope this maybe opens a door in a conversation, because I'm around 10 dealerships, as it is, and we have a large clientele. And if I can get it to the point where it's like our physicals, for instance, everybody who wants an athletic physical goes to the same place.
Can they do the physical off-site? Like what's in?
They go off-site. They go off-site and do the physical.
Can they go to a dealership?
And do a physical at a dealership?
Yeah.
I don't know that the medical companies would take on the liability of holding it outside of their.
Oh, okay.
Like gone are the days where you used to have like a physical in your gym and mass.
Yeah. Well, that's how I was thinking about it.
Right. Yeah. Gone. Just too many things happened. It's now that would be like a sports screening versus a physical.
Okay.
And so they generally like to have it in house, and when they have it in house, then they can open it up to the concussion base. They can open up to the cardiac arrest, the other testing that they have to see if your athlete is conditioned that way. But it's to a point where our athletes know they go there, that this place actually takes appointments online, so they never have to wait.
Okay.
And then they split half the monies, come back to my athletic department, which offsets the cost of the trainer. I don't know why that same scenario, as they're collecting data on students' health and everything and going there for a physical, wouldn't work with a dealership as well.
You're right. Well, but furthermore, too, I think you're bringing up a case where, technology is in all the areas technology is being used. So even at the lowest form of scheduling an appointment, right? It's a form of technology that's exposure there. So whatever form is being used, if you do have some kind of control and say over, it'd be great to then, hey, these physicals brought to you by Ford local store, and then boom, there's another impression for the dealership. But again, I think this also kind of fits again with this whole, like I was saying, this very much value-based package where it's not just isolated, hey, sponsor the football program,
but entire sports.
Yeah, like sponsor safety, and then boom, within safety you get football, softball, blah 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 blah. Have you guys ever done? Because not all dealerships are have this just yet, but certainly there's some very nice showrooms out there. Have you guys ever done any events at a dealership?
Not a dealership. It's funny. They've asked us for bank openings. A lot of our athletes will go to bank openings, restaurant openings. They'll send cheers for mission.
Oh, the cheerleaders, yeah.
They'll send the cheerleaders, to a bank or a restaurant opening, or if there's a new like a restaurant opening up, they'll say, "Hey, we're in Mission Viejo. Can we have some Mission Viejo?" Stuff to help brand our restaurant. So we've done things that way. We're pretty visible too, and with our partnerships, I think it's important for our kids to give back. So they go and they work with PCRF, Pediatric Cancer Research.
Okay.
So they'll go to the hospital and work with kids with pediatric cancer research.
Boom! Again, this is another great. I think there could be. This is harder to form, but certainly these three-way partnerships, I think, are going to be a great way to levy the sponsorship dollars that you would need in order to start saying, hey, either dealership or local business, as opposed to giving me $800 for a game program at or $1,000, we're looking for $25,000. We're looking for $50,000, and this is what this is what you'll get. And so I don't know.
No, I mean, again, I'm all for the idea, like anything that would lessen the burden, on our parents. I want my parents to be able to sit in the stands and enjoy their kid playing. It's a quick 4 years. Without necessarily all the financial burdens that come with it, and a public school is vastly different too than the parochial schools in the area.
Which, it's like sitting here talking to you. Sometimes I almost do feel like I'm being a bit elitist when I'm I'm shocked by your answers, because going to a private school when you're talking about how you can't turn down any players. I mean, where I came from, it's like if you didn't pay, you were cut.
Correct. Yeah, that's a big no-no. You can do that at a parochial school. You can't do that at a public school. Everything needs to be accessible to every kid.
And it's one thing too when not only do you have to support all student athletes that come in, but then it's another thing if you are operating a successful athletic program, and you've demonstrated that at Mission Viejo High School. You guys always have competitive teams and winning, if you're not winning state championships and CIF championships, you're certainly in the finals of you're
definitely competing each year.
Yeah. So that's awesome. A couple of things Coach, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, this is good ideas. I'm glad to be part of a think tank.
And look, I'm going to throw this out there, and if I'm out of place, go ahead, correct me. You're a coach, so you can, if you want to tell me to run some lines or something, go for it. So I'm going to throw this out there. If there's any listeners out there that are looking to partner with Mission Viejo High School, I will gladly help put together a sponsorship package that hopefully would meet the marketing needs of the dealership, as well as having it properly executed, working with you, Coach, to make sure everything gets carried out. Would that be okay?
That would be fantastic.
Okay, well, all right, there you guys go. Coach Roelen here has given me the go-ahead. So if any of you guys are interested in partnering up with Mission Viejo High School, you can give me a call, hit me up on Facebook or Twitter, and we can start talking more details, and we can start talking about what a sponsorship would look like. Are there any upcoming events, big events? Obviously football's already done. You're in the middle of basketball season right now.
Basketball just finished. Winter sports soccer is playing on Wednesday.
Okay.
They'll be in the stadium. They're playing in the second round of CIF. They have a home game.
Awesome.
Soccer team's been very, very competitive. And then spring sports are starting up right now as the winter sports are winding down.
So a couple of things that I just wanted to go through with the listeners here. First off, if you are looking to partner up with a high school, in addition to sponsoring athletic events, also look to, and you guys may know this already, but, look to target the alumni, look to target the parents. So, by coming up with landing pages, and then based off those landing pages, you can look to retarget. There was a fun promotion we did at UCI called a dirty car promotion. So, especially with your stadium on campus, people are going out finding the dirtiest car, and they get a complimentary, or they get a gift certificate for a car wash, but it's sponsored by a dealership, and then you get to announce it in front of everyone, and it's kind of one of these jokes too, right? It's like license plate,
We have a lot of dirty cars. we definitely have a lot of dirty cars. We have multiple winners.
So there's a dirty car promotion, as we had mentioned earlier. Tying in or somehow connecting with these high school students who have big influencers through their Instagram or through their high schools. So you can do some fun things with that and get more brand exposure. Kind of like the discount, what's it called, the discount
card.
Discount card Coach was talking about here. You can even just sponsor the tickets themselves, right? I mean, if you took a game ticket to a local business and somehow maybe if you collected enough of those tickets, then you get, there's an incentive. You get, instead of 10% off, you get 20% off.
Absolutely.
And then, of course, you have your standard exposures of banners and game program ads. But I do believe that if, dealerships and businesses in general, if you guys are looking to partner up with high school athletics, certainly look to go the digital marketing route, because then there's a little bit more control you would also have in that sponsorship. Another thing I wanted to add also, and I talked about this on a previous episode, the idea of homophily, and that is birds of a feather. So one of the big reasons why you should definitely look to partner up with these local organizations is, and especially with a high school, is it's birds of a feather flock together. So you're going to have like-minded individuals. You're going to have people with similar incomes, similar interests, that if you're able to target one of them, you have a multiplier effect. And so dealerships have confidence knowing the fact that by virtue of partnering with a local business, you're taking advantage of this birds of a feather flock together mentality. And if you then have a proper sponsorship, then you start to take advantage of social contagion, where now people are not only talking about it, but it's also taking on its own form within the individuals. And so they're spreading their own ideas and their reviews about it. And to a certain extent, now you're creating a viral type of sponsorship package. Okay, well, Coach, I appreciate you very much being on the podcast here. I hope that we can, we'll have you back maybe later on in 2018, and you could tell us how everything is going, and hopefully we've gotten you a sponsor out of this.
That'd be great. I hope it opens some doors, or at least some communication, that's going to be mutually beneficial versus, like you say, some stagnant ad.
Yeah. How can people find you and get a hold of you then?
You can get through DiabloAthletics.com. That's our sports website. Or if you can go through the Mission Viejo High School website, you can get to myself as the athletic director. It's troy.roelen@svusd.org.
And that's Roelen.
Correct.
And his name, and we'll put his contact information also on the episode page here. So, well, Coach, thank you very much for being on the podcast here, sir. Sincerely appreciate it. I hope all the listeners got something out of this. Again, next episode will be our season finale episode. So please do tune in. That's going to be a very good one. And just a little bit of a teaser. The topic is how the government provides a customer experience. So stay tuned for that one. Thanks for tuning in. And as always, cheers to the customer experience.